To go to the diviners without either desire or aversion, just as the wayfarer asks the man who meets him which of two roads leads to his destination, without any desire to have the right-hand road lead there any more than the left-hand road. For he does not care to travel one particular road of the two, but merely the one that leads to his destination. So also we ought to go to God as a guide, making use of him as we make use of our eyes. We do not call upon them to show us such and such things by preference, but we accept the impressions of precisely such things as they reveal to us. Discourses of Epictetus, Book 2, Chapter 7.
I am Snow, and welcome to the Cyberforest Speaks, where the roots and the circuitry are one, online at snowthegoth.com. In this episode, I want to talk about divination, forms of divination, and the things that surround the divinatory arts. Many people, even before identifying as pagan or occultist in whatever form, are familiar with different divinatory arts: tarot, runes, scrying, astrology, necromancy, cartomancy, geomancy, and various other mancies or mantic arts. We're exposed to the beautiful artwork of tarot decks and oracle decks. We see the use of runes in fantastical fiction and the readings of entrails in works of horror, long before many come to these spiritual or religious paths or communities. Conversations on the meaning of dreams barely seem spiritual to many people. Now, divination is an esoteric act. What do I mean? Well, divinatory rites are not things entirely observable from the outside. They may involve secret training or specialist knowledge. Some require or accompany rituals with worship, prayers, meditation, and some less so. So, what is divination? Divination is attempting to divine, i.e., find out an answer to something or find out what the future may hold. Someone asks a question and draws an astrological chart, pulls some cards, throws some dice, and interprets what they see to find their answer. Why do divination? Well, often because these are questions otherwise unanswerable. What does tomorrow hold is unanswerable because we only know what is happening today and what happened yesterday. But divination may help give us an idea. Should I go left or right? Should I take this job, buy this house, eat this chocolate or not? Sometimes questions seem so challenging that people seek solace in asking another party, consulting gods or spirits. Other times it is more a manner of seeking to communicate with the divine, the numinous, in a manner easier to comprehend, where a verbal dialogue is unlikely. Was that crow I saw just a crow out and about, or was it a messenger? If a messenger, who from? What does Odin or Anmorchen or whomever I associate with crows want to tell me? Divination can help us answer these questions where the answers may not be findable otherwise. Who can do divination? Well, that's a more debated question. Depending on the technique, either anyone at all or a learned few. Anyone can throw some dice, look at the shapes of clouds, contemplate a dream, for instance, but only a learned few are going to have learnt from teachers or old texts about what a given geomantic figure might mean, or what a certain astrological combination, say a planet, a zodiacal sign, and a house might mean. Inevitably, then, there is the topic of access and accessibility here. Some divinatory methods are going to be more egalitarian, depending on how much learning, if any, is required, but also what equipment, time, and space may be required, which gives us space here for a tangent. Do we need to memorize meanings? Is referring to guidebooks okay? Or can we be more intuitive and spontaneous with our divination? People can debate, do debate, and have debated this point before, and will continue to do so, so suffice to say these questions should be asked by everyone considering and approaching divination, then revisited with some regularity after practice. Older established significations for things, recorded interpretations, will be shared and agreed upon. But then, are spontaneity and contextual nuance lost in the process? If you're going to go professional or divine for others, then reference material, a tutor, or other such thing may well seem essential. But if you're only divining for yourself, how necessary are those things? especially if you're not a beginner. To that point, if a beginner approached me and asked for an entry point into divination, asked what was an accessible divination method, I would point them to either geomancy or the Waite-Smith Tarot. Why? Well, the interpretations are right there. Whether you add a ritual element, a devotional element, or not, to the right, they are fairly easy to do. You can draw some cards from a deck, or draw some dots to form some shapes, and look up the interpretations in a book or online and get your answer. People often suggest tossing a coin or rolling dice, which is valid, but I think that requires more thought in how to approach question formulation. Sometimes a yes-no binary is perfect, other times less so. I do think, though, that sometimes people let divination rule their lives. If you're at the point where you cannot leave the house without doing divination first, if you go to the shops and cannot buy your groceries without doing divination and consulting the spirits first, then an unhealthy extreme has been arrived at. It feels comparable to phoning one significant other or parent or best friend before every choice, no matter how minor or trivial. It's reminiscent of Ned Flanders in The Simpsons phoning Reverend Lovejoy over everything that occurs throughout his day to see what the Bible says on the matter, much to the good Reverend's exhausted chagrin. Similarly, a lot of people do divination in much the same way they might ask for advice or opinions, without actually wishing to hear whatever may come, but instead looking for validation in their own opinions, or for someone to tell them what they otherwise wanted to hear. This wastes the time of the parties involved and renders the exercise into an ego-inflating, back-patting exercise, rather than sincerely looking for thoughts, opinions, or advice. Doing divination is a wonderful thing, but consider when, where, and why you do it, and consider if, how, when, where, and why you act upon the resulting reading. This has been a short episode, serving only as the briefest of introductions to divination, attempting to point at various avenues for further exploration, without getting too deep into any individual thing and risk overwhelm or confusion. But listeners are encouraged to contemplate the questions mentioned herein, and explore different techniques, avenues, frameworks, methods, arts, and so on, within the world of divination. Next time, we will look at pagans and occultists, the notions of the exoteric and the esoteric, and where differences, if any, exist. Until then.
You can choose a ready guide in some celestial voice. If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice.